Wayne's video.
Hello, and welcome to today's Tiger webinar. I'm Lydia Palmer, Senior Director of Marketing and Communications at RIT's Division of Development and Alumni Relations, and I'm your moderator for today's webinar. We are happy to have you join us today and hope that our entire Tiger family are well and weathering this global challenge to the best of your ability. We want you to know that the RIT Office of Alumni Relations is available to help all Tigers in the coming weeks with a variety of needs, including new content relevant to the crisis and its impact on you, learning opportunities, and networking and career assistance in the coming months as our workplaces and our world work through the COVID-19 realities. We especially encourage everyone to connect to the RIT Alumni Association social media channels, including Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, where you will find up-to-date communications and opportunities to connect with other Tiger alumni in your region and your industry. Those links are found in the chat box, and the chat box can be opened by clicking on the chat tab at the right of your webinar window. Many in our RIT family have asked how they can help our students and the university during this unprecedented situation, and we are incredibly grateful for those offers. If you are able to help, we encourage you to support the COVID-19 Emergency Fund, which helps students with unforeseen needs, including emergency housing, technology to complete online studies, transportation, and healthcare. We have included a link to information regarding that fund and a way to support it in the chat box, and we thank you very much. We want to ensure that everyone is ready and familiar with our presentation tools. If you are joining from a remote location and are currently signed into your company's VPN, we encourage you to close that channel during the webinar to increase the quality of the webinar transmission. The webinar platform is secure and does not require VPN access. All attendees have joined in mute mode. However, your questions for our panel can be entered in the chat box at any time throughout the discussion. We will make every effort to address all your comments and questions throughout the webinar. You are joining this event using broadcast audio. If you wish to dial in by phone, dial-in information is provided in the chat box. Live captioning is also being provided, and you can find the link to access that in the chat box as well. Today's webinar will be recorded and made available, complete with captions, in approximately 1 week following today's event. All participants will receive an email with the link to the recording. If you have any technical questions, please feel free to type those into the chat box as well, and we will do our best to get you the appropriate answers. Now, on to our webinar. We are happy to welcome Tiger men's hockey coach Wayne Wilson to share a wrap-up of this past season. With 21 seasons at RIT under his belt, Wilson has guided the university to become one of the most successful and respected programs in all of college hockey. Wilson's impressive record with the Tigers includes leading the team through the transition to the respected Atlantic Hockey League. In 12 seasons in that league, RIT has won 4 regular season titles, 3 postseason championships, and made 3 NCAA Tournament appearances. Coach Wilson became the first coach to win the National Coach of the Year at both the Division I and Division III levels in 2010. Coach Wilson is joined today by WITR men's hockey announcers Scott Biggar and Ed Trefzger, who will also share in this season's update and take your questions during the webinar. Thank you all for joining us, gentlemen, and our audience is all yours.
Well, thank you, Lydia. It's great to be able to catch up with everybody and talk some RIT hockey since things got ended so quickly. Scott and I do radio both on WITR and on Fox Sports 1280 home and away, so we get to see the team quite a bit. And I guess we'd like to start out, Wayne, with a look back at this regular season. It was a very good regular season, 19-13-4 overall, and a 4-4 record out of conference, including 2 wins over nationally ranked teams. So why don't we just start out with your thoughts about how the regular season went?
Well, first of all, just excited to be here talking about hockey and not about a virus right now. But no, it's what a unusual season in so many different ways, and an exciting year. And we're all looking so much forward to the playoffs, and everything gets cut short. So, and haven't been able to join you guys since I guess our last regular season game. So great to have you guys, and great to have so many followers. So hopefully we get the questions later on, and we get to answer a lot of questions. But I guess first and foremost, just my heartfelt. I'm so sorry for our seniors. I guess before I say anything else, your seniors are your leaders. They do represent your program, and I often say that they're our guidance, and they decide on how successful or unsuccessful that your team's going to be during the course of the year. Coaches are guiders and do their best, but your seniors really are the most impactful people in your program, because that's who freshmen and everyone else really listen to. They tune out the head coach and the other at time. But, from them looking forward to entering the playoffs to no playoffs, no graduation, no banquet, no farewell tour. I think our Tim Volkman with our SIDs doing a tremendous job allowing them to express their thoughts on a weekly. We have a different senior spotlight where they get to thank so many people that probably touched them over their 4 years here, but just a strange ending. So having said all that, and we'll talk about them probably a little later in the webinar, but off to an outstanding start. I mean, our October was our best October ever. I think it was just one loss to second place. I think it was Ohio State in the Big Ten. But we beat teams like Bowling Green, who were going to be a top 4 team, I guess, in their league, the way they ran their playoffs. They were also nationally ranked. Going to Air Force, winning 2 games there, beating Merrimack, a Hockey East opponent, in front of our Blue Cross Brick City homecoming game in front of another 10,500, winning that game 4-0, beating Colgate on the road to kick off the year. So our October was an outstanding October. Not a bad start to the beginning of November, but November was really our only difficult month. And as it turns out, it was against the top 3 teams also in our league, or at least the 2 teams that finished ahead of us and the team that finished just behind us in their top 4. But that was really our only hiccup. And then we entered December with 2 games where we won both those against Mercyhurst, and then going into January, some strong opponents. Lowell, a team that finished second in Hockey East that we split with. We split with them last year, so really going 500 against them in our 4-game home and away series over the course of 2 years. Difficult time out in Arizona State, although we played very well. Tie games basically going in the third and letting those games get away, but obviously another ranked team, highly ranked team, another team that was going to get a bid to the NCAAs, and finishing off strong. So I was really, really looking forward. Things really came together for our team as we went along. Our freshmen, and we can touch on them a little later too, were solid. Our goaltending was solid, and Ian getting into the game late in the year. Even Colby, our freshman goalie, playing one game against Lowell and beating them was big for us. So I thought we were hitting on all cylinders, and a lot of coaches could say woulda, coulda, shoulda, but really not much you can really say as a coach. They're just words. But I think as a staff and our players had a really good feeling that it's just something you feel. It's an intangible that's on your team, and felt really good going into the playoffs against Air Force and then having to try and win a championship.
Yeah, Coach, the team really was on a roll, and they were 8-3-1 over their last 12 games, and had worked so hard to earn that first round bye and home rink and open the playoffs. You guys were preparing when the season kind of fell apart and things rapidly changed that week of March 9th. Can you kind of walk through that timeline of what the league was doing and how you guys were, preparing, and then all of a sudden it came to an end?
Yeah. So as it turns out, Mercyhurst had to play. We ended up finishing third. Mercyhurst had to go to Air Force. Air Force won those games. We felt good about Air Force, and a difficult opponent, great coach in Frank, and they've always played very well in the playoffs, and we've had a lot of great matchups over the years, but it was just we played them the last weekend of the year too, which is a little unusual. So very familiar with them. They scored the Friday night when we played them in the second to last game in the first minute, maybe even the first 30 seconds. And then after that, we really felt good about our game. So we didn't get off to a great start. Didn't have a great first period that game. Had a pretty good, I thought, pretty even period the next period. And I thought we were pretty dominant in the third period against them in that first game, and we lost. But really lack of scoring on our opportunities, but we had good opportunities. And then the second night, I thought we just build off that. So the first, second, and third period in our second game, I thought we were even better than our third period from the first night, and felt really good and figured some things out. And I think you always have to do that. So looking forward to that. Now we start our week preparing for them, and now that we officially knew who our opponent was, things just got weird probably on that Wednesday night. Basketball, NBA, things got a little scary, and we went from having fans to then we were going to play with no fans. And that's when I said, oh, wow, this is real. This is not something. Now, we're dealing with a lot of young men that, and even coaches that we just said, oh, this is, how's this going to affect us? We can play through. And it just escalated from canceling the NBA, canceling our games, the NCAA games, to quarantine ourselves. It just happened so quickly that all of a sudden, I guess reality set in that this is a lot more serious than I think anyone was thinking at the time. So it escalated, but I can't describe. So we're about to start practice on that Thursday. I think that was the 12th of March. We were about to start practice, and then we got our equipment guy got the tweet, playoffs canceled. And we were going to maybe, downplay it a little bit, maybe get into practice, but we told them right away, the guys, and boom, I mean, heads were down and everyone was motionless. I mean, our seniors in particular, probably just, whether they're on one knee waiting for instruction on the first drill or standing there, probably didn't move for a solid 1 or 2 minutes, just no movement. And I asked, hey, do you guys just want to have a game of shinny hockey and have some fun? I mean, or do we want to end it here? And we elected to play. Some of our seniors didn't play for 5, 10, 15 minutes and then joined in later. But it was a punch to the gut, so sudden, and devastation. But we'll move on from there, I'm thinking, And then the next day, the news keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And then all of a sudden, our border is going to close. Parents are concerned. The school, extended the spring break. I think initially, I can't remember when that even flipped to they're not coming back. All of a sudden, we got a date where everyone's got to be out of their apartments and on campus in the dorms. And before you knew it, the guys were gone. And some of our seniors never had an opportunity to say goodbye to anyone. We didn't see, as a staff, we were told we can't come into the office. We didn't get to see some of them go. So just a brutal ending. And then it wasn't long after that before you knew they weren't coming back to school. There wasn't going to be a graduation. There wasn't going to be a banquet. There was no finishing off of our season, an opportunity to say goodbye. And it just a strange ending.
Let's talk a little bit about that senior class. I was thinking about them the other day. They ran on ESPNU a replay of RIT's regional championship game in 2015 against Omaha. And seeing in that game Chase and Brady Norrish got me thinking about how injuries to them really required those then freshman defensemen in this year's senior class to have to step up early and in a big way. And they and the rest of the senior class have been huge throughout their 4 years at RIT. Can you talk about them a bit?
Yeah. So, when you bring in 4 guys, that's half of your defensemen. And that's difficult in itself. But you can rotate guys in and out a little bit. And some of them went through some growing pains, some difficult times for them. And, whether they they may never have said it, but when you're not playing, you're going, oh, geez, do I even want to be here? Do I even want to keep playing hockey? It's a huge, huge commitment. And I tip my hat to them, and we'll talk a little bit more about them, but they were so professional. They handled adversity so well. When different individuals go through it, and they went through it collectively a little bit, maybe not Adam as much on defense. I mean, I think he didn't miss any games maybe that freshman year, but other guys were in and out of the lineup and probably were questioning themselves. And then as time went on and we lost two key contributors to injury, it really expedited their learning curve. And so we leaned on them, and it's easy to say, but not until their junior, senior years when you can really start leaning on people. You've got to be an exceptional player. Those first rounders, you can probably do that a little bit. But when you look at programs like Wisconsin with exceptional freshman classes and things like that, and they don't make the playoffs of their league and things like that, then you understand it a little bit better. It doesn't matter who you are. It's difficult to play Division I college hockey. But those guys, I thought, handled well, showed great improvement, great determination, and ended up being great examples to our younger players of the adversity that they fought through to become the players that they did, and they were very impactful on our program.
You mentioned the season-ending awards. You not able to have a banquet this year, but one of the ones that stood out to me when it was published was the Luce Biati Coaches Award. Normally, that's awarded to quote unquote the best player or most impactful player on the team. This year, it went to the entire senior class. That's the first time it's not gone to an individual, and I think that reflects on how good and how much the senior class meant to the program.
Yeah, I mean, it's not always been the coaches' award. It's been just about how people handle themselves through adversity, stuff like that. And there's always normally 1, 2, maybe 3 guys that stand out, and then you pick away at it. But I just thought, like this year, why were we successful? I think, one, we had a very good team. And when I say that collectively, it was a year that when one line wasn't working, another one would. It was a year that we had contributions from everyone. Our scoring was spread out. So, to go back a couple of years, Eric Brown with 29 goals. Well, when you're looking for goal scoring, a lot of it fell on his shoulders. And when he didn't, other people. So when you get to that second half of the season and you don't feel, because I think everyone feels good about getting points, and they don't feel as good about blocking shots and doing the other things that are necessary to win, but they don't get the same recognition. I think that in that second half, if everyone is contributing, and I thought maybe our best line coming down the stretch was our fourth line, so to speak, Ryan Kruper's line. I thought those guys in particular, Petrucci and Peacock, were outstanding. And it may not show on the score sheet, but they did so many different things. But when I talk about the senior class, they weren't always the most prolific scorers, but they were very selfless. I think they handled things great. Things don't always go your way. And I thought a great example was even just, and maybe it speaks a little bit to our freshman class, but all of a sudden we have 2 of our freshmen on the first power play unit. We had a freshman on defense on the second unit. And that's a hard thing for upperclassmen to handle, but they were welcomed, they were encouraged, because we knew our team success was depending now spread throughout all of our lineup, not just our seniors. So how they handled things like that, that's just one example, but a great example of, they wanted to win as a team and were willing to accept any role. And there wasn't a jealousy factor of, this guy's a freshman, he's playing ahead of me, or this guy or that guy. I thought it was just one example of putting their own personal agenda aside. And that's why I think they're going to be successful, not only if they want to continue playing hockey, but also once they're finished hockey and they go into life. That's a great learning lesson for all the returning players, is that find your niche on the team and how you can contribute. It doesn't have to be points, and you may not get all the accolades, but it's just as important that if you are contributing in any way, you could be the backup goalie cheering for the guy that's in net. And it was just, our goaltenders are great examples of that. Whether it be Colby that played the game, our other two goalies were just as excited for that. Or how Ian finished off, Drax was excited for that. And when Drax goes back in the game, they're both pulling for them. So I think that is why the senior class went in. It wasn't because of the virus. And this would be an easy thing to say, oh, the virus cut their season short, and I feel for them, but they didn't get the award because there was no banquet or no graduation or anything like that. It was because of their actions and how they reacted as team players and important players on our team. And that's how you win championships. I won a national championship, and I wasn't I was captain, but my role was way different than Gary Galley's and Dave Elliott's or Gino Cavallini's. And if I can't support the best players on the team or what the coach thinks are the best players, because everything could be in your own eyes, then you're not going to win anything. You've got to be a complete team, and complete teams win. And we all strive to do all these team bonding things and all these different things, but they're cliches. It's when things go wrong, particularly for your seniors, because they are the biggest influence on your team. When things go wrong, are they there for the team? And if they're having a tough year as a senior, are they still there for the team, or they pack it in because they're not having the year they're expecting? So our seniors were outstanding this year, and I can't say enough about them. And that, again, people can think why they got that award, but it was because of their actions and not because of sympathy or anything like that.
Just a reminder, if you have questions, we'll get to those in a little bit, and you can enter them in the chat. A couple of people have already been asking about this year's freshman class, one of the best in recent memory, in a group that contributed right away. What are your thoughts about your rookies this past season?
Yeah, I thought it was a real good group, and it doesn't mean they're going to be your best players down the road. I was just a group that adapted to Division I college hockey, whether it be the school, whether it be living alone, whether it be on the ice. I think it does speak to them how they presented themselves to the rest of the team and how quickly they were accepted and integrated into our lineup. I thought they had a great year, and our hope is that there's going to be continued growth from them. And the easy ones, I guess, in particular to talk about would be probably Elijah and Caleb because of the points, and Ryan was the only defenseman there. But the other freshman, Colton, as an example, that Trumbull, who didn't play a lot because of the depth we had on our team, very impactful. Colby Matthews, another example. I think he's going to be a tremendous goalie, but didn't get in the net a lot because of Logan Drackett's play and the competition with Ian. So I think they've all got bright futures for us. Just talking about some of those guys, but they all have bright futures. But they're just all waiting their turn. And I think as long as they just keep working hard, and that good things will happen for all of them.
Another question that's come in regards to the seniors, all sports is on hold right now, but were any of them getting looks from pro hockey teams to sign up for next year?
Yeah, I think all of them will have the opportunity to play at various different levels. So we'll just have to wait and see. We saw Sean had signed with St. Louis's organization. It's going to be in Springfield, I guess, next year. Adam Brubaker's pretty close. Darren Brady had something that he was going to be able to go to as well. So I think they're all going to have opportunities and to play. And I think it's good for them to go off and play, and then they'll turn their attention to what their major was in time. But it's good to get the hockey bug, and I think probably more so this year than any other year. But some of them may elect to go right into the business world, and I know Brody had an opportunity. Now I don't know how those opportunities in the work world are going to change as well with the virus. If some of those opportunities are going to disappear as people, it's going to be a tough time, at least while this is still going on.
One of the things that we also wanted to talk about today is looking forward to next season. Now, we understand that there's some uncertainty about that. I mean, we can talk a little bit about that too, about contingency plans. But you've got a non-conference schedule put together. Can we talk a little bit about the teams that you're going to face next season?
Yeah, we're going to, Blue Cross Arena, we've got Notre Dame. It doesn't get any bigger than that. So hopefully everything starts on time. But to get Notre Dame to come to Rochester, I think is a major, major coup for RIT and Rochester in general. I think the fan support, the word of mouth from teams like Michigan and Boston College and all that encourage them to come. I mean, I think they're all looking to play quality opponents on the road. And so I think for us to get Notre Dame on our in Rochester, the community is big time. We've got Princeton coming for 2 games, Tiger on Tiger action, but to get a prestigious academic school like Princeton, an Ivy League school, to come for 2 games, I think is also a real big thing. So we try and switch our schedule up quite a bit as we move along. We're going back to Bowling Green, which is going to be an interesting game, or 2 games, I should say. One of them being outdoors. So we're going back to the outdoors. So I'm hoping the climate is a little warmer. But I know their last game was almost rain-like, so I don't want that. But I don't want I don't know if we're in the minuses, but it felt like that in the snow. But so we're going to be playing outdoors for that. And I'm just trying to think who else we got next year.
You're at Union to start.
We start off at Union, right? So we're going to Union, which is an old rival for our older fans, I guess, that remember Union. Union and RIT used to go at it to get to the national tournament in the Division III days, and Rick Bennett has done a tremendous job there. So we're going to kick off the year there. People probably wondering, I should comment, we're going to Union the very first Saturday, October 3rd. That's the first time you're allowed to play, and people are wondering about why we are not playing that Canadian team. We're playing a Canadian game, our first game back after Christmas again. So that will be our second time. And the reason for that is we're allowed on the ice for 4 hours as soon as school starts. So once we've gone through a whole month and maybe a week, 5 weeks of practice, we are more than ready to enter NCAA play. Now, you don't know how you're going to play until you play those games, but a Canadian team would be a warm-up, and you'd be playing an NCAA the next week. So I don't know if one more week helps or not, but we just thought we were ready. What happens to us now, though, is our exams. We're playing the first weekend in December, and then we're off. And then we're coming back, maybe playing, let's say, January 1st as an example, or we're playing Bowling Green December 31st. We're playing an NCAA game, and we've been off for a month. So we come back the 26th, so we get 3, 4, 5 days possibly before our first NCAA game. I would like to get a game in somehow, because we've just been off and rusty for so long. So we've kind of switched our thought process on when to play that Canadian team. I think the other factor is that when we play Union, they're a non-conference game. We're both at the same disadvantage, if you want to call that a disadvantage. But that Christmas break, some teams don't have exams till later, or they're on trimesters. They can play right up to December 20th type of thing, and then come back 1 week off, come back and play. They're not missing much. But when you're off for 3 weeks or longer before your first NCAA game, so that's why we've switched that around. So a little explanation why these Canadian games have switched a little bit, and our thought process anyways.
Yeah. You talked to us beforehand about some meetings going on with the coaches and around Atlantic hockey and elsewhere about next season. And, are there contingency plans being made in case things don't start in October?
Yeah, I think we've got to prepare for a lot of different things. When you hear that the NFL season, may start later, or college football, which are billion-dollar businesses, I think would be just as smart to, even though we don't start till later on, just as smart to at least prepare ourselves. So I know we're looking at, we're very optimistic that school will start. But, you never know. Month to month, we saw how quickly things change in a week or days or even hours, how things got shut down. I think month by month, we've got to reevaluate where we're going. So we're looking at different starting times, November starting times, January starting times. The thing that won't change is if we're going to play a Frozen Four, that day and place, so Pittsburgh on whatever date that is, won't change. The regionals won't change. They're either going to be played or they're going to be canceled, but they're not going to be moved back or anything like that. So we've got to adjust different type of scheduling. So you may be looking at a later start and maybe no non-conference games. You may be looking at the first 10 games with no fans. There's so many different scenarios, and I'm not suggesting anything. We are just planning for different scenarios. Our thoughts are let's get on with our schedule on time, and that's what our hope is, and that's what I think everyone's hope is.
A big part of college athletics is recruiting, and associate head coach Brian Hills and assistant coach Dave Insulaco log a lot of miles, and I know you do too when you get time in between games. What can you tell us about the next year's incoming class?
Well, I really like the class that we're bringing in. I guess you're always excited about the incoming guys. We have right now that I can comment on, we have 3 defensemen coming in and possibly another. But if I just go through them a little bit here, we have Dimitri Microgiannakis. Good luck with that name, and good luck to us putting that name on the back of a jersey. A lot of letters in that name, but he was up for defenseman of the league in the BCHL, and he was up for MVP as well. So a couple of accolades for him, and had a tremendous year. Aiden Hansen-Baccato, another defenseman. He was second team all-league last year in the BCHL, had another very good year. Unfortunately, he had that ankle sprain to start the season off, so missed a good chunk of the beginning of the year, which was unfortunate for him, but was off to a good start. And then, as we affectionately call him, Demo, Dirmad Demiro, we call him Demo, but had an exceptional year with Trail. And all 3 of those teams were going to be contenders for the BCHL championship. They were all probably in that top 4 to 6 teams in the league, if not higher, but they were in that, and they were all leaders on their team, offensively speaking. We're waiting on someone else, but that I can't comment on. If I go through the forwards, Cody Lukowski led his team, Camrose in points, was an all-league player, outstanding season. Grady Hobbs from Manitoba, he ended up getting a league MVP, second in the league in scoring. Tremendous player. And then Tanner Andrew, who also had an exceptional year for his team. So really like what we're bringing in. Going to be a little less in numbers this year as far as our team roster, and trying to even get that down a little bit more. But we're just waiting on one more defenseman. I should say Daniel Chenard, too, a goaltender, and we're bringing him in. Someone that we really like. Won a national championship with Will Cavalry, but we're going to have 4 goalies this year, and that's not. We think a lot of him, and but it doesn't mean we don't think a lot of the guys that we have returning. But we want to break up the two goalie class so that we recruit 1 this year, 1 next year, and then get back to our 3 goalies. So it'll be a little awkward this year, but this decision was based more on what's better for our team as a team, not a comment on our goalie situation. We just thought he was good. He was in his last year, so he was looking forward to going on. We liked him earlier in previous years. He had an injury that prevented him from the year before from really playing much. He came back at the very, very end of the year. So he attended Maple Leafs camp 2 years ago before the injury. So he's someone that we think a lot of.
Normally this time of year, in a couple of weeks, you'd be heading down to Naples for the coaches meeting. And one of the things you talked to us previously about is trying to come up with a common overtime across all leagues. obviously nobody's going to Florida this year, but are there still conversations about that and other rules changes coming?
Yeah, it's going to be a rule change year and everything, all the information. Rick Godkin is one of the coaches, and he's from our league that's on that committee. And they are, they were wondering if they were going to wait a year to even get involved with all this because of the situations. But we had a 2-hour league meeting today, and we're doing that periodically. When I say that, at least once a week, maybe twice a week, meeting in 2-hour segments. The overtime is going to be a separate 2-hour meeting because that's how difficult this is. And it sounds like it should be easy, but there's pairwise ramifications. How are you going to give points ramifications? So we went to the 3-2-1 point system. There's all kinds of things. I have my thoughts. Other coaches in our league have their thoughts. And then when you think of other leagues, they've got totally different thoughts. So it's that is going to take up a lot of time. That and the video review are probably the two bigger things. I think there's a lot of other things that we can come to an agreement very quickly on as we change some rules. But I think those are the two hot topics. I think the biggest thing is trying to get an overtime that everyone can agree on so that when you're playing non-conference games and things like that, people aren't looking sideways trying to figure out how come we're not playing or how come they are playing. Are we in the entertainment business? Do we play enough games where shootouts and things like that can affect your pairwise or don't affect your pairwise? But a lot of great conversations. So it'll be interesting.
I had a conversation during the season on that whole overtime thing with somebody I know well, Coach Kavanaugh at UConn. And he made the point, he said, I don't want to be playing any overtime that doesn't mean something because I don't want somebody getting hurt or getting a penalty that keeps them out of a game.
Valid point. And all the different people bring up different things that I can't disagree. And I don't know how we got to this point. It seems like it's almost been mandated. We've got to break ties. And I don't know if that, he also brought up a point and was brought up in our conversation. Only 12% of the games are ending in ties. So is it that big of a deal? But the one thing that, for me personally, and I run things by, so we had a captain's meeting yesterday. So we were zooming in that. And I like to hear what the players think. I think all the players and a lot of people do like the 3-on-3, first and foremost. The one thing that I struggle with is hockey now is a 2-1, 3-2, very low scoring or 1-all or 2-all type games. They're not 8-7, 6-all. We don't get those games. I'm having a tough time figuring out. We've played 60 minutes and we're struggling scoring. And all of a sudden we think in 5 minutes, we're going to play 5-on-5 for 5 more minutes. That'll solve the problems. I don't see how that does. For me personally, I'd assume to go to 3-on-3 right away. So you play your 60-minute game, you go to your 3-on-3. I'm not big on the shootout. So there's only so many points you can accumulate. At one point, it was either 1 or 2 points that you could get in a hockey game. Now we're rewarding a point in the standings, and we know the standings are going to be tight, for a shootout, for, I don't want to call it a trick play, but something that is skill-oriented, not team-oriented. I don't feel good about that. I would rather have a hard-fought tie than to lose in lose points or in a trick play. I'm also not big on, as Mike pointed out, the only thing that would count even on a 3-on-3 is that a guy scores an unbelievable goal, great pass, huge save maybe during it, and the save didn't count, the goal doesn't count. The only thing that would count is if there was a 5-minute major. So all of a sudden we're counting things, we're not counting things, saves aren't being considered. The way we have it, at least our league, it was great to try those things, but it still went down as a tie. And those other things were for entertainment value. So, but so as much as I'd like to go to 3-on-3, my next thing is do you end the pairwise after the 3-on-3 or do you end it after the 60-minute? thing.
Yeah.
Maybe you do end it. I mean, I don't know when the overtime started, 10 years ago or whatever that time period is, but we used to have ties all the time. So maybe you end the pairwise after 60 minutes and then you go with the 3-on-3. But I don't know the answers. I know what I like and I don't like. I don't like going 5 minutes after I played a 5-on-5 after I played 60 minutes of 5-on-5. If we're going to decide this, let's get to something different. And I don't like the back end of it, of a shootout. So is it 5 minutes to 3-on-3, 7 minutes? What if it's still tied after that period? Does it go down as a tie? Maybe you go back to the 2-point system where you get 2 for a win and 0 for a loss. And if you do play 3-on-3 for 5 or 7 minutes and you're going to break the 12% of the games that you're struggling with, maybe we're overthinking it too. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day in the 80s, there was a 10-minute overtime, 5-on-5 overtime, and then it was just a tie. But they've experimented with lots of different things over the years. One of the questions that came in is any news on a 12 team joining Atlantic Hockey?
I think there's been some talk. I think that's on the back burner right now, the way things are going. I know there's been a couple programs that was, and we'll dive into that a little bit more in our meetings. But there's a couple of teams out there. I know Rhode Island's been a team that had been mentioned. Navy's been a team that has been mentioned. I'm not starting any rumors, but there's a couple. There's 3 teams, and I think it's doubtful, but there's 3 teams that are going to be looking for a league in 4 teams if you count Arizona State, but Alabama and both Alaska schools, they'll all be looking. So you never know where they're going to end up. I'm not suggesting that, but we'll discuss it and do what's best, what we think for our league and our individual teams, and we'll vote on it, and we'll see what happens with the existing teams, that is. With the new teams, they'll have to go through the process of applying and that, and to my knowledge anyways, and I'm not privy to what's going on in the league office, I don't know where those things are at right now. We haven't been updated on that, really the schedule and what's happening, and with the virus has been on the forefront with our discussions initially. But as we move along in these weekly meetings, that'll expand to other things.
One of the questions that came in has to do with recruiting. You get a lot of players from Western Canada, and the question was, it seems like RIT really seems to like the BCHL. Is it a priority to get guys from that league?
I wouldn't say it's a priority. I guess you're just looking to get the best possible players. It's still been difficult for us to get players out of Michigan as a financial aid school, I'm talking about as well. So, when you have to pay, a kid out of Michigan may say, you know what, I'd rather walk on and pay at Michigan State or Michigan or Ferris or Lake State, or same thing with New England guys. If you have a scholarship in Michigan and those schools aren't offering, and I've got something financially tangible for them, then we can get them out of those states. Minnesota's the same thing. We've had some great success with Sean Murphy and Ben Lynch and those guys out of Minnesota, but those were 2-year processes to get them here, and thankful that they came, and hopefully they were thankful that they did as well. But a kid from Western Canada, Toronto is easier for us too because of location, but those guys are going to have to go somewhere, and they may have schools that they'd like to go to, but if they don't get offered, they're more than willing to come. They're not going to walk on at Michigan necessarily when they're getting recruited to play at RIT, and he has to pay at both. If that makes sense. I don't know if I explained that well enough, but it's hard, when you're financial aid, it's difficult. So we get a better player sometimes when there is no affiliation or when I say dream school, when they don't necessarily have that school in their backyard where their friends and girlfriends or whatever are going to. So we have more success of getting a better player from different areas.
Speaking of, financially, it's difficult to offer it to players. There were some rumors going around that RIT was looking at, Division I across the entire athletic program. And, and maybe some timetables on decisions or things. How has that been affected, or is that still active, or has it been put on the side burner?
Yeah, I don't know for sure. I'm assuming right now the school has bigger fish to fry. I think it's very much something that the school is considering. That's for sure, and it's something that is we were closing in on. I know there were some presentations at the last Board of Trustees meeting, actually the week of the shutdown and everything. But I don't know where it stands. I think June is, although they're probably convening the Board of Trustees now a lot more now than I think the next meeting was in June. But I do think that at this time, I think there's just a lot of other pressing issues that, not that I know what's happening, but I'm sure it's going to be put on the back burner for a little bit till things settle down. I could be wrong on that, and maybe it's still very much something they'll talk about, but I do think that it would be doubtful. There's just too many things going on right now to figure out right now. But it is something that the school is very interested in and looking at, and thoroughly. Not a. There's been a lot of hard work behind the scenes and preparing for some things into what are we getting involved with if we go, and now they're collecting all that data and information and want to make an informed decision, and that decision may be pushed back, may not be, but I think it'll probably be pushed back until they can get this whole thing back under control and back on track.
One of the things that has been a hallmark of RIT going back decades is tremendous fan support. Since moving into the Gene Policini Center, RIT's led the league in attendance every year. Almost 3,000 fans game this year. What does it mean for you, for the team, to have that kind of outstanding fan support?
I love it. I mean, and obviously our players do. It's funny as you're reading some of their senior spotlight comments and all that, the coaching staff's not at the top of the list, but the fans, the corner crew, and the pep band are. So it's kind of funny, but we do have great support. I thought this year in particular, I thought we had some great crowds, particularly after Christmas, and that's when once kind of the football season and people are locked in a little bit, they like to get out, and Gianna and the crew there at the University Arenas have done a great job, and but our players couldn't be more thankful. And it was interesting when our 10th anniversary team came back. I think it brought back a lot of great memories. And Blue Cross Arena, it's our fans were on steroids at that point. I shouldn't say that, but
as long as it's not the players.
You never know when you get in trouble for that. But seeing the alumni pep band people come back, alumni corner crew, the fan support from the community and everything else. It's great fans, and our players, I can't express how much they appreciate it. And people think that we're supposed to have home ice because of it, and we do, but other teams get really jacked up about playing us. And that's why a team like Notre Dame's coming down to Blue Cross, because they've heard. I mean, I think we snuck up on some people in those early days when we sold out, and then word travels quickly that, wow, what an experience. So I think the teams are prepared for the type of crowd that they're going to be facing there. And our league certainly knows in the Policini Center what they're getting into, and they're excited for it. So it jacks up both teams.
Another question that's come in online is any idea or indication of who the captains are going to be next season? Yeah,
we've named 3, but we thought we'd just spread it out a little bit. I think by design, our players voted on that along the same time as the awards. I just think because of the way they ended, we wanted to, let the award winners out. So we've done that, and that's on our webpage. So things like that. So not even our all league award winners are on our webpage, but our award winners. And then we're really trying to focus in on our seniors and give them some closure on the season, and then really announce our season as we start gearing off about, maybe even our schedule. I'm not sure what's all planned for that, but kick off, starting to look forward to next year once I think our seniors are honored or given an opportunity to put some closure to their career as a player and as a student at RIT. So, and I think, great choices on the captains. And how a lot of our awards work is our players vote for them. So our players vote for the captains. I will say that the coaches also get a single vote. Our trainer, our strength coach, our equipment person also does, because I think they know our players as well as anyone is. So maybe some players are on their best behavior, maybe they're not around the coaches, but we also want to know how they're being treated and what their thing is. It's one vote, so there, a number of people get a vote on that, and so we're excited about our leadership next year as well.
That kind of ties into a question that was also asked about what the atmosphere was like this season in the locker room. But I kind of want to expand that a little bit, and maybe besides that, talk a little bit about how important leadership is from the guys who are not wearing a C or not wearing an A, kind of leadership from the whole team in situations.
Yeah, that's a great point. Your freshmen are normally, if they're are going to come in quiet, feel themselves around, where do they fit in, and how are things going, and that. But I said before, I'm always you're going to have a successful year, and this when you talk about what I was saying earlier, is that the coach does a lot of leading, guiding at the beginning of the year. But the people that your freshmen or underclassmen really look towards are your seniors. Their words, their actions are way more impactful, I think, than a coach. And then when when you've got something special, and is that when you get to that halfway point in the season, maybe even sooner, but somewhere, there's a point in the season when, as a coach, we got to do this, we got to do that, or we didn't do this, or we didn't do that. We're about to walk in the locker room in between periods and say something, and they're already saying it. That's when you can hand it off to your leaders. And it's one thing for a captain, but it gets tiring if a captain or a couple of captains have to be talking all the time. It's got to be supported by your players that don't have a letter on their jersey. So leadership is huge, and it's not, we talk about captains. I talk a lot about captains and seniors, because your non-captains that are seniors, they're just as impactful as everyone else. And then your juniors have to be there as well. And then if you've got your sophomores willing to speak up, because your freshmen tend to be quiet, and they may not say too much all year long. But, it's important that if your captain comes in and says something in between periods, that he's being supported by another person, and then it's contagious and it grows. So that is just one example of why I thought we had something special, because our captains, I talked about Kruper and Peacock as seniors. I talked about Petrucci as a sophomore. Those guys, all of a sudden, when they're going out and relishing their roles and playing hard, and because you appreciate that. And if they're trying to find their niche and are spending more time leading than trying to push a freshman that may be competing for a role on the team, instead of trying to push them down, is encouraging and helping them, even though they know it's competition. It's one thing about competing, but if your backup quarterback or your two backup goalies aren't supporting your starting goalie, he's going to have a tough time being successful. So if it's more important to have a person starting in goal be unsuccessful because you want in, then you're not going to have a successful team. So it's hard to describe. It's easy to say at times, but that might be contradictory. But when you see it on a daily basis, you just know when you've got something going. And that we had something going this year. Easy to say, and I don't know how far that was going to take us, but I know that takes you a lot further than having talent and people squashing other people on your team and not letting them grow and to their full potential.
So we probably have time for maybe this last question. You know, with everything that's gone on over the last few weeks and the disappointing cancellation of the playoffs and everything, how do you kind of put that all into a ball now and start to change, move towards next season?
Well, yeah, I guess I'm trying to let the semester finish itself. I know we're not physically at school, but I think everyone's been able to digest this now. When we were probably thinking they're canceling our games this weekend, this is nuts, Air Force is here, we should be playing, I'm healthy, to, wow, this is a lot more serious than we all thought. So everything is put back in perspective that way. But I'd like to just kind of wrap it up with our seniors in the spotlight. And then I think once that's done, and even, we're meeting with our classes as well separately. We'll have one more meeting with our seniors, and they're probably still in touch with not only themselves as a group of seniors, but also the team as a whole. But we'll wrap that up there. And, I don't know what is going to happen with graduation if they've got other plans. Is there going to be a viral graduation? Is there going to be something that we're going to do in the summer, next fall? What do you do? But it'll be interesting that way. But we're trying to wrap things up for them, and then we'll move forward.
So, hey, I want to thank our panel of hockey greats here, both announcers and a fantastic coach. And also want to thank what is obviously a rabid band of Tiger hockey fans joining us today and participating in the chat and throwing some questions out to these guys. This is really all the time that we do have for today. If you do have additional questions, you can email them to ritalum@rit.edu, and we will direct your questions to Coach and to Ed and Scott. We want to thank our presenters for being here today and thank you, our audience, as well. Please visit rit.edu/alumni/Tigers Staying Home for a listing of our upcoming virtual events. We have several webinars coming up in the next few weeks, and we want to include as many of you as possible. And a special note, we have a webinar on April 27th that will feature Coach Wilson in a conversation with his former players, Chris Tanev from the NHL's Vancouver Canucks, and Jared DeMichael, who is the assistant head coach at University of Mass Amherst. So don't miss that. Please exit the webinar by simply closing your live storm window, and do let us know what you thought of the webinar through a brief survey that you will receive via an email. Have a wonderful weekend, and everyone, please stay healthy.